The container shipping supply chain remains in the deepest crisis it has ever seen, as the massive backlog of container ships stuck outside Chinese ports is cleared to start sailing again. Disruptions are rippling globally, and industry executives are warning that it will take several months to unwind the catastrophic logjam that is now forming. U.S. ports are already scrambling with record volumes of cargo, a shortage of manpower, and truck drivers to deliver the goods across the nation. So if you find empty shelves again in the coming weeks, don't be surprised. They're making a comeback with a vengeance. In fact, we're also being told to expect a fresh round of price hikes all across the board, from food to consumer goods to energy. And those new increases will not only impact people's monthly budgets, but they're also threatening to leave over 20 million Americans without power and basic supplies over the next couple of weeks. We have a lot to discuss in today's video, but before moving on, please don't forget to leave a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel so you can stay updated with our future videos. Our supply chain issues aren't improving at all. We're approaching the middle of the year, and we're still in the midst of the most severe crisis in container supply chains, according to Malcolm McLean, who founded the container shipping industry in the late 1950s. We would like to be able to say that we see signs of the logjam breaking, but frankly, we don't, said Peter Tershwell, the Vice President of Maritime Trade and Supply Chain at SP Global. Some headlines over the past couple of weeks have said the supply chain crisis is easing. As 2022 begins, we do not see the evidence for that, at least not in terms of fluidity of container flows, Tershwell added. A recurring problem since the beginning of the health crisis is that the system doesn't have time to recover before the next shock hits. The system did not have a chance to recover from the 6-day Suez closure in March 2021 or the shutdown of the Yantian port in South China in the spring, one of the largest marine terminals in the world. New disruptions could further damage the system and further delay a return to normal container flow. That's why the 2022 outlook remains one for continuing disruption, with no guarantee of a quick return to system fluidity, the executive explained. Authorities at the port of Shanghai, which has been running at about half of its capacity for a month due to a citywide lockdown, have announced that operations will be resumed this week. But congestion has already increased by 40% at the key exporting hub. As the backlog of container ships stuck at Chinese ports starts to clear, it consequently results in a new series of choke points across the global supply chain just as a seasonal uptick in demand gets underway. In other words, creating the perfect recipe for chaos in the shipping industry. During the lockdown, several big companies faced billions of dollars in losses and suffered from extensive delivery delays and product shortages. Tesla, for one, lost about a month of production during the shutdown. Retailer Bed Bath & Beyond Inc. said that an abnormally high level of inventory was in transit or held at ports due to the restrictions. Alcoa Corporation, the aluminum giant that's a bellwether for the global economy, blamed transport snarls for product unavailability and dwindling inventories. The partial or total closure of Chinese ports led many businesses to try to shift shipping routes to be able to send their products to overseas markets without success. Some companies have already tried to ship their orders somewhere else, or they canceled them, said Stephanie Loomis, Vice President of International Procurement at freight forwarder Cargo Trans Inc. But my guess is we're going to see an enormous backlog of freight come out of there like a buckshot. Right now, it's taking an average of 111 days for goods to reach a warehouse in the United States from the moment they're ready to leave an Asian factory, nearing the record of 113 days set in January, and more than double the trip in 2019, according to freight forwarder Flexport. Now, given that China accounts for about 12% of global trade, and the lockdowns have idled factories and warehouses, slowed truck deliveries, and exacerbated container logjams for over 4 weeks, U.S. ports are extremely vulnerable to additional shocks, especially because most facilities at both West and East Coast are already swamped with massive loads of cargo. Once product export activities resume and a large volume of vessels make their way to the U.S. West Coast ports, we expect waiting times to increase significantly, noted Julie Gerdeman, CEO of supply chain risk analytics firm Everstream Analytics. We expect a bigger mess than last year, added port executive Jacques van der Meiren. It will have a negative impact right now and a big negative impact for the whole of 2022. On Wednesday, the total container ship count for America's jewel hub of Los Angeles and Long Beach reached the highest level since February. Some of California's backlog has been shifted east in search of faster routes. Shiploads of goods are lined up from New York City to Charleston, South Carolina. Data from marine traffic also exposed a major reversal. The U.S. East Coast surpassed the West Coast in the amount of container capacity that's waiting at anchor to offload. And while U.S. ports are getting crowded with imports once again, supermarket and grocery shelves are becoming increasingly emptier. Americans are already noticing shortages of everyday essentials and empty shelves where household staples are normally on display. Many shoppers have been complaining online about shortages of everything from packaged goods to clothes and tools. According to Data Assembly, a research firm that tracks grocery and retail pricing, roughly 30% of grocery products are out of stock, marking an 11% increase from November 2021 levels. In some states, out-of-stock rates are even higher. In Connecticut, Delaware, Montana, New Jersey, Rhode Island, Texas, and Washington, they surpassed 40%. Compounding the challenge for Americans, consumers are also spending more money on many of the same goods they used to buying. Grocery prices jumped by 9% in March from a year ago, according to Adobe. Egg prices climbed 56%, according to the Department of Agriculture. Joel Beal, CEO of Alloy, a tech platform that helps companies track products and manage inventory, highlighted that the trend is likely to persist for quite some time, given that limits on how much manufacturers can produce are forcing retailers to compete for the same goods. Every customer we talk to says we have a shortage of this, we have a shortage of that, Beal said. When you have less inventory than people are requesting, brands have to make decisions about who is going to get the limited inventory. You go on allocation and certain retailers will be disproportionately impacted, he explained, noting that brands will sell to buyers who are willing to pay full price, which means that shoppers can expect to find more out-of-stock notices among discount retailers compared to other stores. Outside a Dollar Tree in Detroit, one shopper lamented the rising cost of toilet paper, beverages, food, and other items she had just purchased. In an interview with The Guardian, Latasha Holmes revealed that the price increases were forcing her to choose among necessities for her 4 kids. "What am I gonna do?" she said. "Prices are up everywhere, all over town. I can't afford everything." Just like Holmes, millions of Americans are already experiencing some serious sticker shock at grocery stores, but they had better get used to it. The inflation rate for food is expected to continue its historic rise through the end of the year, Bank of America analysts recently warned. In a note released on Thursday, the bank's researchers forecast U.S. food inflation to soar another 9% in the coming months. Rising prices for staples like bread, milk, and meat should continue this year as the price shock from the Russia-Ukraine conflict hits American grocery stores, they wrote. Bank of America's analysts also pointed out that farmers have been grappling with rising costs like never before. The cost of agricultural chemicals has climbed almost 50%. To make things worse, as the global energy supply chain breakdown accelerates, skyrocketing prices for gas and diesel, coupled with labor shortages in the trucking industry, are also exacerbating supply chain headaches that will only serve to increase food costs for Americans. The Transportation of Freight Index, which measures the cost of shipping goods in the U.S., soared by a staggering 24.5% last month, largely due to a truck driver shortage that's been considerably worsening over the past couple of years. The trucking industry was dealing with a shortage of drivers even before the pandemic. Now, the market has tightened even more dramatically, leading to a surge in trucking costs, the Bank of America team explained. Fuel and energy are essential for the industry, but a critical shortage of energy supplies is sending prices to levels never before seen, and as a result, having a brutal impact on the inflation outlook. According to energy expert Mike McWilliams at the Center for Economics and Business Research, even if the price of fuels, including diesel and gas, drop later this year, the cost of heating our homes will stay high for years rather than months. That means trouble for more than 20 million families in the United States. All across the country, many households are drowning in utility debt. Energy supply shortages and sharp price increases have led authorities from 33 states to introduce temporary moratoriums that have protected families who couldn't afford to pay their bills from energy shutoffs during the winter. But in 29 of those states, moratoriums have now ended, and the last ones expired on May the 1st. Now these households are about to face widespread power shutoffs. Advocates say that when a family is shut off from power, they cut back on food, medicine, and other essentials in order to get reconnected as quickly as possible. In many cases, they completely lose access to everyday goods and fall into a debt spiral, as some become unable to work from home, for instance. Soaring energy prices are the primary factor fueling this rise in utility debt. In the past 12 months, the price of natural gas has jumped by 21.6%. Electricity has gone up by 11.1%, and fuel oil by a shocking 70.1%. For low-income households, the yearly cost of home energy climbed from $2,511 in 2019 to $3,339 last year. If current trends continue, the cost could reach roughly $3,957 this year, and that's nearly 58% higher than costs were in 2019. In addition, these families are also struggling with high rates of inflation for other essential goods such as gasoline, food, and rent. All of these price hikes are eroding our purchasing power and leaving us with absurd energy and grocery bills. As port congestion intensifies and global supply chain problems compound, the simultaneous breakdown of our food and energy systems is likely to bring a lot more pain for American families in the near term and spark long-lasting damage that will stay with us for decades.